Welcome to the series, The Dictatorship of the Proletariat According to Marx and Engels, Preface and Format. This is the second series in my Communist Mode Production According to Marx and Engels, Dictatorship of the Proletariat According to Marx and Engels, and finally, Foundations of Communist Organizing series, the latter of which is going to be coming out after this one, and the former is already out, and I highly recommend checking out before this. This is the preface and format of this series, and I've subtitled it as Necessary Transitory Phase, Proletarian Class's Untrammeled Self-Governance. This project started in tandem with my research into what Marx and Engels had to say about the character of the communist mode production and an analysis on the foundations of communist organizing, with the intent of being able to express the processes of development of the actual final aim of communism in a collected, comprehensive way that actually reflects the original conception of Marx and Engels. The transitional period between capitalism and communism is one of the most poorly understood aspects of Marx's work, despite it being defined as him as the principal innovation that makes him distinct from others of similar mind to him. And we will be reading this piece where this has come in this series, but the quote is, "Now as for myself, I do not claim to have discovered either the existences of classes in modern society, or the struggle between them. Long before me, bourgeois historians had described the historical development of this struggle between the classes, as had bourgeois economists their economic anatomy. My own contribution was, 1. To show that the existence of classes is merely bound up with certain historical phases in the development of production. 2. That the class struggle necessarily leads to the dictatorship of the proletariat. And 3. That this dictatorship itself constitutes no more than a transition to the abolition of all classes and to a classless society." End quote. Something that makes the foundation of the distinction between scientific socialism, communism, compared to reactionary, bourgeois, and utopian socialism. The materialist foundation of its development out of the social revolution carried out through communist organizing and the preconditions established through the capitalist mode of development, which in turn dictate its goals and necessity, can be difficult to grasp for those who do not actually understand the actual movement of history. The dictatorship of the proletariat, contrary to ideas of some sort of fascistic dictatorship of persons over capital, is instead characterized by the self-governance of the proletariat through its organs of direct participatory power, the associated communes, the workers' councils, cooperatives, local committees, and so on, with the standing army and police apparatuses abolished in exchange for new instruments held directly by the associated workers themselves. It is the untrammeled class power of the proletariat, not in the form of an individual member of the proletariat or small group of bureaucrats, but the whole of the proletariat who reabsorb all social power previously alienated into the state. This is not possible to do instantaneously or uniformly, instead over time at variable rates across different industries and social activities which are transformed and brought under social control as bourgeois right is removed by coercive force. To the bourgeoisie, the bourgeois state is free as it serves them. To the proletarian state is free as it carries out its economic and social revolution, establishing the basis for communist production and life activity while abolishing bourgeois relations. It completely transforms society and its conceptions through changes in the mode of production and exchange, and through cultural work, all carried out by the proletariat on the ground. As the proletariat reabsorbs social power through spontaneous action by the masses that was originally alienated into the state, the need for coercive force to repress counter-revolution from other classes, with the end of the economic and social basis for distinct class relations and social changes emergent from these. Any external force that presents itself above society becomes redundant, with analogous social functions which remain useful being carried out by society through organs of self-governance. In this way, voluntary participation in communal activities and decision-making becomes the foundation of society and relationships between people, which become spontaneous through mutual benefit rather than being enforced externally. the state begins a process of withering away, with a government of persons being replaced by social management of resources, infrastructure, and systems that provide for society's needs. This marks the end of power and authority over people and the beginning of direct and rational economic planning carried out by the general intellect of society. This withering, as the word suggests, occurs over time as social power is reabsorbed by society in sometimes great leaps and other times slowly and steadily as the productive forces develop in different industries. This process starts the instant the proletariat seizes power and implements its functions, with those immediately being replaced by communal administration and coordination without intermediaries between people and social activity. Communities manage their own affairs directly, and the global community becomes interconnected with mankind making history through rationally directed collective action. The commune is the dictatorship of the proletariat, with all of its violence, its forceful struggle to survive against the bourgeois counteroffensive, and its failures to fully establish the class power of the proletariat. It is the movement itself to produce the commonality. Its own goal is its abolition, and its social organization is such that it continually removes its own basis to exist as it develops. It is, despite the claims by utopians and anarchists, an absolutely necessary and natural result of the social revolution by the proletariat, and will organically arise regardless of their claims, because it is a material outcropping of the continued class struggle after the initial social revolution. Denying it will simply make it so that the proletariat is unprepared as it spontaneously develops, and so that we do not learn from our mistakes. Instead, we need to draw from materialist analysis of history and determine the real steps in the movement to abolish the present state of things. The role of the Communist Party within the dictatorship of the proletariat is also often misunderstood and is a complex one. This series will not touch on it directly, though the PowerPoint series that I intend to produce out of all three series, this one included, will include information on this. Both the dictatorship and the Communist International, the class party, and the question of the class party state. In addition, the particularities of economic transformation are not completely explicit, but I do draw in some information on those terms. The format of this is principally by year. I've read through the text below, sends the post-Marx and Engels reading list, aside from some choice pieces which are not summarized here but will likely find their way into the PowerPoint, and extracted quotations that I found pertinent to the topic at hand. I try to avoid repetition where possible and summarize the quotes. After that, I utilize those summaries to construct coherent summary essays on the text in as down-to-earth and a direct manner as possible, while sometimes adding my own thoughts. You'll know what this sounds like if you had gone through the previous series. Again, highly recommend. Through analysis of this, I have broken the dictatorship of the proletariat into the following fundamental topics and concepts that make up its character. Now, I do not intend to read through all of these, but I will go through the primary sections of this. If you'd like to go in and take a read of all of this, then feel free to go into the description below, and there is a link to this Google Doc, which you can access to read at your own leisure. So we've got the fundamental goals of the dictatorship, then the necessity of the dictatorship phase, then self-governance of the proletariat, with reabsorption of social power, economic transformation, and social revolution. Then we have the commonality, the withering away of the state. Then the dictatorship and the Communist International. And finally, the dictatorship and the Communist Party in terms of the self-governance of the proletariat and the party, and the class party state. This is the reading list that we are going to be working off of. You can pause it if you'd like to look through it, or you can just wait until the videos come out. And here is the post-Marx and Engels reading list I have prepared. This in particular, the 1973 Mahowald, Marx's Gemeinschaft, Another Interpretation, was especially illuminating, by the way. I highly recommend it if you get the chance. But that is the end of the preface I have prepared for the series on the dictatorship of the proletariat according to Marx and Engels. Again, if you'd like to check this out, in your own time, then I have a Google Doc prepared for your perusal within the description. And also, if you want to talk about this in greater detail, I have a link to the United Marxist Pact Discord server. Feel free to join in and ask any questions or give any input that you might have. With that said, tomorrow we'll be starting with the first video in this series, the 1848 piece by Marx and Engels, the Communist Manifesto, which of course we went over for the communist mode of production, but it has returned, and it will return once again for foundations of communist organizing. So I hope to see you then. Have a wonderful day.